I had a 2-week vacation and decided to spend it at my lake house. The outcome was fantastic, not to mention mind-blowing. The first 5 days, my buddies and I dedicated ourselves to consuming insane amounts of barbecue and an even more insane quantity of beer. The next 2 days were spent recovering from the recovery. My bachelor party probably wouldn't have ended so soon if my liver hadn't officially thrown in the towel. I drank so much that my liver is now immune to any disease, infection, or natural disaster. By Saturday morning, I felt so terrible I was considering calling a priest for last rites and swearing off alcohol forever. My late grandfather always used to do the same thing. By the way, he was the relative who first let me try moonshine. My liver had decided it was time for me to quit, and it had gone on vacation without me. I decided to postpone both my confession and my sobriety. That evening, once I felt a bit more human, I planned to crack open a couple of light beers. I was swaying in my hammock, soaking up the sun and sipping an Alka-Seltzer through a straw when I heard the long, drawn-out creak of the gate. It was my wife's mother. She had come to check on me on her daughter's behalf after the previous night's barbecue and beer fest. Without getting up, I grunted a greeting, though I wasn't exactly burning with desire to talk to anyone. At that moment, I felt like a complete zombie. My relationship with Margaret is great. In any argument between me and my wife, she's always on my side. But despite that, we've never been particularly close. When my wife and I argued about this vacation, my mother-in-law supported me. I had 2 weeks off and planned to spend half of it at the lake. My wife was dead set against it. She protested so loudly that the woman living downstairs came up to complain. She got an earful too, for sticking her nose where it didn't belong. I was just about to give up on my plan when my wife's mom, Margaret, showed up. After she found out what we were fighting about, she took my wife by the hand and led her into the other room. I don't know what she whispered to her, but the impossible happened. My better half let me go and even packed my bag for me. When I got to the lake house, I finally understood how she'd managed it. It turns out that Margaret had also decided to spend her own vacation at her lake house. And since her place is right on the other side of the fence from mine, my wife figured her mom would keep an eye on me and ensure I didn't get into any trouble. She thought my mother-in-law's presence would stop me from burning the house down or bringing a mistress up here while drunk. She was so wrong. No, I didn't burn the house down. I only slightly damaged it. And to be fair, that wasn't me. It was Alex. Close to morning, Alex got so hot that he, half asleep, grabbed the first thing he could find and chucked it through the window for some fresh air. It didn't help, because it didn't get any fresher, but the mosquitoes had a feast. When Alex sobered up, he promised to compensate me for the damage and replace the window. Looking at his rotten, blackened teeth, I seriously doubted it. How can a guy who can't even fix his own teeth manage to install a window for someone else? So, my wife's first fear was unfounded. But the second one, well, that turned out differently, because I did end up with a mistress of sorts. Margaret moved gracefully, like a panther, and quietly approached me, telling me I looked awful. As I was lounging in the stifling heat, what I saw was stunning. She was wearing a short summer dress, tanned and toned. She'd often said that hard work is dignified. Now I saw with my own eyes that it was true. She looked aristocratic, even though she was holding a rag and her face was glistening with sweat. Too lazy to form proper words, I could only mumble something incoherent. She leaned over concerned and touched my forehead with her palm. Right in front of my face, I saw the lace of her bra in the neckline of her dress. I caught her scent, a floral perfume I recognized but couldn't quite place. That aroma washed over me from head to toe, pulling me into a thrilling whirlpool of bliss. I started greedily inhaling, my heart beat faster, and my brain went on high alert. 5 days without my wife were making themselves known, and I felt a tension of a very different kind. Margaret looked incredible, and my body, despite the pounding headache and my struggling liver, responded to her touch with full, enthusiastic readiness. Margaret smoothed her dress down, as if she'd sensed my state, and quickly walked back towards her property, almost as if she was afraid I'd get up and follow her. Without a second thought, I put my empty glass on the table and, following pure instinct, hurried after her. I didn't know what I was going to do. The moment I ran out the gate, Old Man Peterson appeared as if from nowhere. Rumors around the lake community said he was distantly related to Charles Bukowski. Peterson never denied these rumors, but he never confirmed them either. He'd pompously walk the roads at night, yelling Bukowski's poems at the top of his lungs. I can't judge his poetic talents, but what he shared with Bukowski was a fondness for women, alcohol, and brawls. Peterson, like the famous writer, was a real hellraiser and a permanent fixture at the local bar. Honestly, they hadn't served him there in years because he never had any money, but sometimes someone would buy him a drink. Today, it seemed the old man was counting on someone's kindness and generosity. He whined and stretched his hand out to me, asking if I could spare some beer and barbecue, since the smell from yesterday had spread all over the lake community, and he couldn't ignore it. The old man reeked of stale booze so badly it made my eyes water. I scrounged up some loose change from my pockets, gave it to him, and promised him a light beer later if he got out of my way right that second. Peterson made an offended face, as if to say it's easy to offend an artist, but he took the change anyway. As a final shot, he said something that made my eyes pop out of my head. He said, "Margaret has a very nice, big hole." It turned out he was talking about a hole in the fence, which he used to watch her for her own safety, of course. Before shuffling off, Peterson pointed at a hole in the tall, sturdy fence and wandered down the path, mumbling another of his poetic masterpieces. I waited until Peterson was out of sight, looked around, and pressed my eye to the hole in the fence. I scanned the property. My relative was standing in the middle of her vegetable garden, weeding the beds. She had taken her dress off and was now just in her underwear. I started breathing heavily and swallowed a lump in my throat. My face was burning with excitement, and I didn't want to be caught in such a delicate situation. But I also had no intention of looking away from the view. Margaret was tirelessly working the soil, pausing occasionally to wipe her face. I caught myself thinking that her physical fitness was sparking my interest in her as a woman. The sound of a car approaching in the distance made me jump and look around. I expected to see the surprised faces of neighbors, but no one was there. When I looked through the hole again, instead of the expected view, I saw an eye staring right back at me. From the other side of the fence came an outraged shout and a promise to deal with the scoundrel. It was my mother-in-law. Running away would have been stupid, so I froze, not knowing how to get out of this mess. I couldn't even come up with a lie that was remotely believable. The gate swung open and an angry Margaret ran out. She hadn't even taken the time to get dressed, wanting to catch the peeper red-handed. She was just about to unleash a furious tirade when she realized it was her own son-in-law standing there. She started muttering something about Peterson and tried to cover her chest with her hands. Inspiration struck, and I offered to fix her fence. I made up a story about coming over to see if she had a thermometer and running into Peterson leering at her. I said I chased him off and was inspecting the broken fence to fix it later. I told her it was right at that moment, as I was looking at the hole, that I bumped into her eye. She invited me in, opening the gate wider. She said she'd seen movement in the hole and thought it was a thief or a troublemaker, which, in this case, she was spot on. I walked forward and entered her house. I drank a glass of water in the kitchen. The heat and last night's party were still very much with me. Margaret went to put her dress on and get a thermometer. As she passed by, she accidentally brushed against my arm. It felt like a bolt of lightning. No longer in control of my actions, I turned around, pulled her into my arms, and covered her lips with mine. She went soft and relaxed against me. I heard her sigh, which I took as an invitation, and I let my lips and my hands do whatever they wanted. Half an hour later, we were sitting in the gazebo in her yard, drinking tea as if nothing had happened. Margaret was telling funny stories about things that happen around the lake community. I was happily devouring a piece of her raspberry and mint pie. We heard loud voices outside. Margaret and I looked at each other and went over to the hole in the fence that had brought us together. We took turns looking through it. It was Peterson, standing by a tree and reciting another work by his favorite poet. And that's when it hit me. I recognized the scent that came from Margaret. It was carnations. I started to laugh, and Margaret laughed loudly next to me. She was watching Peterson and wiping tears of laughter from her eyes. I put my arm around her waist, turned her towards me, and decided to double-check if it really was the scent of carnations. It definitely was.